So the idea is that you go into a prep phase to prep your Alpha Strike, and during that whole time you're still doing, good set of damage. So the concept that I think will work here is that you guys also have taunts, and the taunt reduce is lasts for 6 seconds, but it's every 15 seconds. So if you recycle two taunts on and off on a target, that guy loses 30% of his damage that he's doing. And we can prep a whole Alpha Strike on, say, there's a concept of two DPS, a healer, and a tank, right? If you're on, you prep your Alpha Strike on DPS 1, so the healer is on him, and then you do your Alpha Strike on DPS 2, because the most likely the tank might guard the DPS 1, but that's just your prep to strike DPS 2. So it's that switch at the last second and then hitting it. And then if me and the tank control the healer at that point, that's a perfect setup. And the other DPS, DPS 1 that you were on before would do very little damage because you guys are going to be taunting him in cycle. So as soon as you switch, we have a breather room in which we can be on DPS 2. Now the tank will sit on DPS 2 and reduce his damage with taunts and all of those effects that he can, slow him down, but no stun. So in the sequence, you'll see that you're going to stun DPS 1. He's probably going to get the big hit. He's going to try and uh, release one of his release capability of whatever that might be, and then the second stun will hit him. So the idea is to keep him nice and clean so that he's not able to resist any double stuns. Um, the other thing is the healer then is, if we go for an Alpha Strike, the tank pulls the healer in, stuns the healer. I get on the healer and do the second stun when the healer tries to break that. And I think that'll be a guaranteed Alpha Strike every time. Bit of practice, and I think we can nail this as a sequence. So it basically would just be a hit. It's about just getting the sequence down in practice, and then everybody knowing where their cycle of the stun is. And I just I cannot envision how somebody could break out of this unless they have some stun resistance. The other thing is deflection. If you go to your combat proficiency, sturdiness, which is under masterful,
Hmm.
gives you 6 seconds of immunity to stun, sleeps, or lifts. And you'll see that that's in the sequence. And that's why I was trying to get the 6 second gap is actually, there's a reason for that. Each stun will last 4 seconds, but I suspect the person will break it around the 2 second mark. So the second stun could get us to 6 seconds. And if you have a deflection, then nobody can actually, interrupt your whole sequence. You can get it done in the 6 seconds that is allotted for an Alpha Strike.
Hmm. Are those damage sets that are just of the prep phase, or is it like the first one's the prep phase and then the second one's the Alpha Strike?
No, those are all just the Alpha Strike sequence.
Okay, okay,
And
so no prep phase.
I was probably a little bit sloppy on the first one and probably had another damage in there. That's no prep phase. That's all just Alpha Strikes.
Okay.
And if you see that the last one before the continued damage is with force stun in the sequence, I get to 6.7 seconds. Yeah, yeah, no, that sounds good. So my idea is that what's probably going to happen is that we're going to be three cloaking uh, characters with one visible tank. They'll probably attack the tank. I'll come out of cloak and start healing. I'll have a guard on me at that point. I most likely will get focused real quick. As soon as I start, as soon as I become visible and start healing, um, what's most likely going to happen is that I'm going to be very much loaded to keep my healing going. That's when you guys come in and prep on one DPS and Alpha on the second. And so it's going to be up to you guys to call the Alpha Strike. And that's why I posted that video. If you watch just a few seconds into that video, you can hear them. There's a lot going on, but the guy that's starting the sequence, he'll call is an alpha ready, and people will say yes, alpha is ready in 10 seconds, and then when it's ready, he says alpha ready, and then he just has a keyword, and he says something, he says scan out, which is a debuff, and everybody knows to follow their sequence. And as a healer, I can't do that. As a healer, I'm going to be way overloaded. So it's usually one of your tank is also doing a lot. So it's usually one of your DPS characters that is going to be calling the shot there. Yeah, I mean that's fine. That's I think that the whole idea is to build up. Yes, and let's say you have a sequence, but let's say there's a healer. That's the person that you. The whole idea is that say you have a tank and a healer situation. Um, the tank, you want to force the tank to deal with, you know, commit a little bit, and so the tank is either going to put, you know, a guard on DPS one because he's getting hit hard, or he's going to be silly and leave it on the healer. Um, and so you start on DPS one, for example. Um, the whole sequence is that the third DPS might not be part of the Alpha Strike per se. They might have to commit to dealing with the healer. So if the tank is really capable of dealing with the healer, then that's great. Because I saw with the harpoon, you can have a stun on the harpoon, and the healer might actually be able to. The tank might be able to actually harpoon with a stun them again, and even have a third stun. On the Vanguard, there's 3 possible stuns you can do. What we have to practice is figure out if those 3 stunts go over the limit before you get to the third one, because then we have to change the sequence up. So there's a good shot that the tank themselves could deal with the healer without the third DPS having to commit to the healer. I think it's going to be one of those things where you have a tool set from one person and you just have to figure out, okay, there's how much alpha strike abilities do we have. Yeah, and I think it's going to be one of those things that I mean, this is what happened. If you watch that video of the guys, that was a Star Trek Online PvP, and that is a 5-man team there. And everybody's a little bit different. Some people might have 2 abilities to switch to 2 different types of characters, but some people are very much committed to the one role. And so some people are more flexible, others are not, and you sort of build up your team. And one day one person is available or not, and you figure out what mixes you're going to go with that day. And so it's a common theme where you figure out what you need to do. Yeah, it's so the one thing is that it's you want to be careful about sustained. So there's 2 kinds of ways of taking down a team. There is a one where you have sustained DPS where you overcome whatever resistance and healing abilities they have. And the other one is where you find the vulnerability and you alpha strike. So you might not have sustained DPS, but you could hit it within a few seconds very hard. And so they're 2 different modes. The sustained DPS has some drawbacks as well. Obviously, you can suddenly get into an encounter where they can just outlast you with cycles that they have with their buffs. And your alpha strikers, they might adjust for you. If they start figuring out, oh, this person's going to be alpha, they can force cloak out at the right time, and then you're in trouble as well.